Let's try that again. Welcome back to Telltale Books. This video, I'm going to start another new author series. I keep getting into this because, well, I started out wanting to read everything by H.G. Wells because H.G. Wells is by far my favorite author, and I probably will never ever change that decision. But then I wanted to read everything in order of publication by Philip K. Dick. And then I wanted to do, well, if I'm going to read everything by Philip K. Dick, I should really read everything by Edgar Allan Poe and H.P. Lovecraft and Robert Heinlein and William Hope Hodgson. And then I thought, well, there's all these other authors that I've always loved a lot, but definitely haven't read everything that they've written. So I should really investigate them because I do love some of their works and want to read the rest. These are all kind of the authors that I will buy anything that they've written. There have been a number of people that have done videos of their go-to authors where if they come out with a book, they'll buy it without caring about reviews or what it's about or anything. It's just they love this author and they just really believe they're going to like anything that they could possibly write. So I've got a lot of authors like that, and I've got this growing list of ones that I want to start. And so right now I'm starting on one of those authors, which I actually haven't read all that much by, and that is J.G. Ballard. James Graham Ballard, a British author, of course. He actually got started writing in, I believe it was 1952, about the same time as Philip Dick. He won a contest for a newspaper with a very short story about some terrorism in, I believe it's Southeast Asia, where Ballard actually grew up during World War II and wrote a whole novel that is a fictionalization of his experiences in China during World War II, Empire of the Sun. So he wrote that first short story and won this contest. He didn't publish anything for a few years after that. His first published work after that, well, there were two works that were both published the same in different magazines in the same month. Most bibliographies will list Prima Belladonna as his first story that appeared in Science Fantasy in December of 1956. Well, also in December of 1956, in New Worlds magazine appeared Escapement. And through a toss of a coin, I decided to read Escapement first. So this is really his second story, but his first science fiction story. Now, Ballard his work became very highly literate. He became highly respected as an author, especially in the 1980s after the movie Empire of the Sun came out. He was not really writing science fiction anymore, and his books were appearing in the literature sections of all the bookstores, no longer being stuck in the science fiction section. In the 1960s and 1970s, he did a lot of very surreal, very experimental writing, much of which touched on themes of sexuality and political themes that got him censored a lot. But his earliest work, at least so far, with the first story I've read, Escapement, came across as very traditional science fiction, which is why he is so strongly regarded as a science fiction writer, even though so much of his work has not been science fiction. So Escapement, arguably his first story, or arguably his second story, I should say. And that's the way I'm going to do it. I'll do Prima Belladonna next. What is it about? Well, it starts out, man and his wife are watching TV. They're watching a play. In the 1950s, you actually had plays of things like Shakespeare appearing on television. You would never see that today. Well, on PBS you would, but not on network television. Back then you did. You really did. So they're watching this play, and the guy all of a sudden notices that the people in the play are repeating themselves. This is a live broadcast, mind you. Did a lot of that back in the early 50s too. He notices that the actors in the play suddenly are repeating a scene that they had already seen. His wife says, "No, can't be. You got to be imagining that." He said, "No, we've seen this scene." So, well, he shuts up and he goes back to watching. And all of a sudden it happens again. It seems to be repeating. His wife can't even tell. She has no notice of this. He's the only one that is noticing. So he calls his friend. "Are you watching this play? Have you seen it repeat?" His friend has no clue what he's talking about either. Everybody in the world has no clue that things are repeating except your main character. He keeps seeing it repeat. So the story becomes very much like a Groundhog Day sort of thing, except every 15 minutes time resets. And he's the only one that perceives that. Everybody else is fine. I'm not sure if that trope had been done previous to Ballard talking about it in Escapement in 1956, but of course, because of things like the movie Groundhog Day, that has become a very standard time travel trope. Now this story, it's a very short story and doesn't really do a whole lot with this idea. It doesn't go too far. So Ballard is he's still kind of getting himself together here. He hasn't reached his full ability that he would achieve in the 1960s. He's still feeling things out. And so he wrote a very traditional style science fiction story with an interesting idea. Like I say, if any of you out there know of any earlier examples of this kind of Groundhog Day theme, I would love to hear about it, because I'm trying to think of any, and I'm honestly not succeeding. I'm not sure that it was done before Escapement, December of 1956. But I could very well be wrong about that. So let me know if you know of any that I'm not thinking of. I wouldn't call this a top tale, but I did enjoy it. I like Ballard's writing. I like his ideas. I like his style. Even though his style is still very formative here, you still can kind of see where it's going to go. If you've read other works by Ballard, you can still see that this is definitely a J.G. Ballard story. So, short story, doesn't take much time to read it. Very interesting. I have it. I took the dust cover off, of course. I have it in the complete short stories of J.G. Ballard, which, by the way, isn't absolutely complete. There's a couple I found that are not in here, such as that first terrorist story he wrote for that newspaper contest. It's not in here. Actually found that online. To read that one, I found a scan of the actual newspaper online where I could read it. Interesting, though that story, The Violent Noon it's called, it was published in May 26, 1951. A publication called The Varsity. And it was the winner of the Varsity Crime Story competition in 1951. Has never been collected into a book. So the only way I could find that one was to find that scan online, which is, that's the cool thing about the internet, is there's so much of that stuff out there where these things that you just can't get a book with it, but you go online and dig hard enough and you come up with a PDF or something where you can actually read it. Great if you really want to dig deep and be a completist. But The Violent Noon and Escapement, while they were enjoyable, I wouldn't say run out and find them and read them right away. They're just not spectacular. They're not great. They're not top tales. So, I will be moving on to Prima Belladonna, which was published in Science Fantasy in December 1956 for the next of my J.G. Ballard complete fiction videos. And I will see you then, I hope. Bye.